I love it when a good mystery lands on my doorstep. Now, prominent roads, well-used roads, don't just disappear from existence. Often they're upgraded or rerouted, perhaps. But rarely do you come across a fully fledged turnpike road with milestones, markers, route directions connecting two major cities that then just vanished. That doesn't happen. Welcome to the story of the road that just vanished. So the question is, why was this route abandoned? And to answer that question, we're going to need to find out what it was used for, what it connected, and how long it was in use. And I think the first clue in the puzzle today is just up ahead. Just look at this. This is a massive mile marker, absolutely huge. And we've got IX, so 9 Serum, so 9 to Serum in that direction. And we've got XXVII to Bath, so we've got 27 to Bath. Now if I head north and keep on going in that direction, well, I should be able to find another one of these to give us some context of the route as a whole. In the meantime, some context on turnpikes. So a turnpike road is something that came into existence in the 1700s. From the 1750s onwards and the next century, hundreds of these in the form of turnpike trusts were set up. The trust was responsible for collecting tolls on the road and of course maintaining the road itself. By 1825 there were now over 1,000 of these trusts maintaining over 18,000 miles of routes. Now these are relatively easy to spot. Often when you see a V-shaped junction you can picture a toll house sat in the middle of that junction. In fact, as you travel around the country you can still see milestones on active roads, largely indicating that this was an old turnpike road. So let's get back to our abandoned road. Okay, so this is curious. We have the very beautiful Yarnbury Castle sat on the hill here. I don't think you can legally explore it. And lo and behold, we have a milestone. Now you wonder why I'm finding that curious, because I haven't walked half a mile, let alone a mile from the one we were just at. Let's go and have a look and see what this milestone's doing there, rather than another half mile along the trackway. Right, here it is now. You may have noticed I've also twisted my ankle. Joy. Okay, same shape and size as the other one. We've got XII, miles from Warminster. We've got X to Serum. Great condition, but Warminster, why is Warminster on there? We're less than half a mile from the Serum Bath milestone. Perhaps it's a shared route. Either way, we're going to need to do some more research on these turnpikes. So turnpikes.org seems to be a really good detailed website. Now we know that this route went from Bath to Salisbury or Serum. Let's tap in those and we can see what we come up with. There seems to be hundreds listed, probably over 1,000. But not the one we want. There's Salisbury to Warminster, Salisbury to Devizes, Salisbury to Lopcombe. No mention whatsoever on that website. Pretty conclusive about Salisbury to Bath or Serum to Bath, which is really curious for two reasons. Number one, the absolute size and formality of these milestones. Let's take a look at this one. XIX19 from Serum back that way. XXII22 to Bath. They're huge, they're prominent markers on the landscape. Reason number two, we're going to head down Salisbury Hollow into the village of Eddington. We're going to show you something just the other side of that village. So as I head down Salisbury Hollow, I can't begin to tell you how beautiful it is, but also, well, I'm glad I'm going downhill because I wouldn't want to be walking up. That's a heck of a workload for even the fittest of horses, but just look at the view here. This is absolutely stunning. Eddington just below us, the route across this valley, huge valley, and something really important to show you. Okay, we're nearly a mile on from the last milestone, and the reason why I know that is of course because there's another milestone, slightly smaller, same design. Can't really make this one out. What's really curious though is what's just around that corner. Come take a look at this. So we're only half a mile or so away from the last milestone at the bottom of Eddington. We just saw back there a huge hill in the distance, which is Salisbury Plain, which we came down via Salisbury Hollow. And we have a curiosity right ahead of us. We have what's marked on the maps as a toll house for this turnpike road that never existed. Let's summarise where we are so far. I love a good chart to help us date stuff. We now know that these milestones could have been in use from the early to middle 1700s, turnpike road or not, with no known end date as yet. Well, that gives us the date range for this abandoned road of over 300 years. Now this route we already have seen does pass and connect a few villages and towns along its way, not least the lost village of Imber. The residents given just 40 or so days to leave in 1943, and it passes Imber within just a mile or so. So none of that really helps us narrow things down, just gives us maybe a little bit more context. And of course, the toll house there really confuses matters. Let's get back up onto Salisbury Plain and see if we can unravel more of this mystery. Okay, so the team at Hidden Wiltshire have a blog and a podcast, and they mention on their website that this route was out of use from 1959. Okay, so we can start to narrow this down because I've actually sourced this from the website British History. So we now have a date range 1720 to 1959. That's a good start. Let's head to the south side of the A303 because the Hidden Wiltshire team offer us another nugget of information here. This route was called the Old Slow Coach, and again that's detailed by the British History website, that wonderfully romantic name. Maybe that's a clue for a little later. So it's about time we started consulting maps. But prior to the 1850s we don't really have a lot to go on. There is however one map by Andrews and Drury which details the landscape from 1773. Now we're up on Chain Drove here to the east of Stapleford, and bizarrely there is a mile marker marked on their map, Serum 5, Bath 31 or something like that, and it should be somewhere here. Now, it's probably long gone, that mile marker, because well, it's not on the more modern OS maps from the late 1800s, but nevertheless that tells us something crucial. This here, right here, is our route, the Old Slow Coach. Up very high. Okay, so this doesn't help us narrow things down at all. It doesn't even confirm the road was officially in use in 1773, other than there was an old route here with a marker stone. Okay, so let's go back to the British History website. That gave us some clues before. Maybe there's something else there again. Now you have to niche down a bit here and look at individual villages, but if you do that for the village that you may remember earlier, Eddington, the one with the toll house, well, if you do that, this website turns up and states that the road between Bath and Salisbury and a coach ran between it from 1712. Now 1712 is much earlier than most of the official turnpike roads, but it shows that it was in use. Now if we add that to our chart, well, all it does is seems to stretch it out a little bit, but nevertheless it's on there. Now the British History website on the Eddington page also states that the route to Tinhead was turnpiked in 1751. Now, the chart itself is taking shape and we've got some firm dates on there now, but we still haven't even began to answer the main question of why this route closed. The whole time we've been walking this route, been trying to be conscious of what is alongside it, what the landscape was like, are there any features, are there any villages, houses or old remains, and now I find myself walking across part of Salisbury Plain and the landscape has changed again significantly. Every so often you find a troop hidden in trees just randomly. Very bizarre place. Okay, let's try and narrow this down, the date of this road down even further. Let's go to some online maps and National Library of Scotland just prior to 1959 and see what this road looks like back then. 1940s. Okay, so it looks to be already abandoned, which is really odd. Imber was still an active village up until 1943. This really surprised me. 1930s, the next map, and we're still abandoned. This route was out of use by 1930. Let's go back another decade. 1920s, yep, you've guessed it, abandoned. Well, at least we're narrowing the date of use down as we speak. Now you might be thinking the answer is fairly obvious. We're right here on Salisbury Plain. Nothing exists here for swathes of land because of the army. And let's not forget, the army didn't come here overnight. There's pockets of land were purchased from the early 1900s right up until the 1940s during the war. In fact, Imber remained until 1943, so roads wouldn't have just disappeared overnight. In fact, in the early 1900s, there were a few railway routes planned across the plain, but the War Office put pay to that by buying up these chunks of land. But if we go to the National Library of Scotland maps and we look at the late 1800s, 1899 map, well, this road seems to have already been abandoned by then. So let's go back another quarter of a century or so, 1873, and you can look at the beautiful southwest of England maps on the National Library of Scotland website. And of course, you've guessed it once again, this route, the old slow coach, is abandoned. So where does this leave us? Well, 1712 is our start date that it was in use by coaches. 1751 it was part turnpiked, and by the mid 1870s it was definitely out of use. So is there anything else that we could have missed? Anything that we may have not come across? Well, it turns out there was, because we were looking at the British History website again, and we were looking at the generic page describing turnpike roads, and lo and behold it mentioned this one, the old slow coach. 1767 when they upgraded and noted a lot of these turnpike roads. Well, this one wasn't upgraded and wasn't mentioned. It was almost as if at that point then it was left abandoned. And one more thing to show you, which is again another milestone. Check out this one. Now weirdly, it shows that the writing is actually on the back. Can't really tell, 12 or 13 miles from Sarum adds up. Oh, maybe XX22, 22 from Bath. Okay, so back to our chart, and now we can really add a closure date of 1767 in a formal sense at the latest. So the only question left to answer is, why was this route abandoned after just 16 or 17 years of being turned into a turnpike? The work that would have gone into setting that up, the placement of the stones, perhaps the route had been used for a long time before. And maybe, just maybe, therein lies our answer, because everywhere along this route it seems to take the highest route possible, not necessarily the quickest, down in the valleys. And maybe that in itself tells us so much about this route. Perhaps it does span back millennia, long before the 1712 date that we have. The topography here could tell us everything we need to know, and really speak of an age when the high chalk plains were safe and speed really didn't matter. And perhaps the name, the old slow coach, gave it its reputation that went before it, and maybe as time went on, quicker, more faster routes in the valleys were becoming available. I guess we're never really going to know. Now, if you like this sort of video and you want to know more about the history of transport across Salisbury Plain, not just this route, you'll want to click on that video just there.